I have the book How to Write a Poem by Kwame Alexander with illustrations by Melissa Sweet. Themes in this book are mindfulness, active observation, curiosity, asking questions, imagination, inner voice, emotional connection, accessibility, breaking barriers. Okay, so this is not a normal book. This book is more about ideas. It has no characters, it has no plot, it has no events. It's about an idea, which is like the idea of how to write a poem. All right, buckle up. This book's hard. Interpret words and phrases. What do you think this means? Okay, so it really dumps us in the deep end here. It starts with a quote by Nikaido. It says, "We are either wheels or connectors. Whichever we are, we must find truth and balance, which is a bicycle." So unpack that. In a nutshell, it's kind of like there's two kinds of people in the world. You got wheels. Wheels are the people that drive action. They are the doers. And then you have connectors. Connectors are your collaborators, your networkers. So if you're picturing a bike, like you can have two wheels and a frame, the two wheels and a connector. Okay, but a bike can't balance when it's like just sitting still. A bike can't move forward without action, and it can't be connected without the connectors. So it's kind of like saying that like you need all of it to work together. Like the wheels can move, but that doesn't move the bike forward. The connector can connect the wheels, but that doesn't move the bike forward. You have to have the connector and the wheels together to move the bike forward. So that's what that means. How you explain that to a kindergartner or first grader, they'll just take a stab at it. It's a fun metaphor. It's a fun metaphor. They don't need to know it's a metaphor. They just need to recognize that this is a fancy language, that it's fancy language. All right, key detail. What are the first steps to write a poem? Thank God this is an easy question. He literally tells us the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So these are right there questions. You can literally point to the answers in the text, okay? Number 1, you have to think of a question. Number 2, you have to close your eyes. Number 3, you have to go outside. Maybe switch 2 and 3. Maybe don't walk outside with your eyes closed. Number 4, listen to the quote-unquote friends of the sun. Now this is really cool because a very easy activity you can do is like a little nature walk. You read this book and then you go outside, you tell your kid to get a question, then you go outside and you basically just listen to the sounds of the outside until you have an answer to your question. So you can take a little nature walk when you read this book, and you 100% should take a little nature walk and actually try to get your kid to write a poem. Okay, but those are the steps. Question, close your eyes, go outside with your question, listen to nature. Next question, key details. What is the next step after we hear an answer? So now we have a question, we closed our eyes, we're in nature, we're listening for an answer. Now we hear an answer. What do we do with that? It says we dive into our imagination. So you kind of just like take your answer and then like dive into the answer, take it apart, take it further. Very abstract. Of course, we're writing a poem here, so there's no right or wrong way. You know, poems are, you know, pretty abstract in themselves. Well, a lot of poems have rules, but they're abstract ideas. Interpret words and phrases. What do you think cavalcade means? So yeah, vocabulary word, although how often you're going to use the word cavalcade, I don't know. It says to discover a cotton candy cavalcade of sounds, a cacophony of sounds, but there's some fun etymology here. Not that your like first grader needs to know this, but I think it's super interesting. So cavalcade is related to the word motorcade. A motorcade is like a parade of cars. A cavalcade is a parade of horses. How does that mean a parade of horses? Well, if you think of the French word for horse, it looks like this, cheval. The Spanish word for horse, caballo, looks like this. The Italian word for horse, cavallo, looks like this. So you can see like all the root words and how they look alike. Horse, the English word, that came from German. But I don't know, you can have some fun with your kid trying to guess what cavalcade means. They really dug deep with that vocabulary word. Okay, next question. Interpreting words and phrases. What do you think the author means by quote unquote rowing across your white paper? I think this is a really good one to ask kids because while it's very abstract, I really think that a young reader is going to be able to say, oh, rowing across a white page, they're talking about writing. So a lot of the abstract metaphors in this book are like kind of out there and I don't know, maybe a little inaccessible. You kind of just have to let them be out there. But this one is a very accessible metaphor. Rowing across your white page is a metaphor for writing. And I like that it's starting to emphasize the fact that writing is a process. You don't just write once and you're done. You row. It's a process. It's hard. You have to persevere. All right, next question. Interpret words and phrases. Why do you think the author compares writing to a maze? I think this is really awesome as well because it points to the fact that writing is a process. You don't just regurgitate everything out all at once, just like when you're figuring out how to get out of a maze, you don't do it all at once. It's a process. There's trial and there's errors. You go this way, it doesn't work, you go back. And it gets to the theme of breaking barriers, like you have to get through it. It's not just like one and done. I should have my themes. But yeah, it gets to the theme of like breaking barriers, perseverance, and that should be expected in any kind of writing. Next question, central idea. What lesson, moral message does the author want the reader to take away? So, this whole book is about, of course, writing a poem, but on a deeper level, it's about finding your voice. That is a very abstract process, and you can only break it down into steps so much. There's only so much like breaking it down into steps that you can do without just, you know, eventually just letting go. And like writing is a process, it's a creative process. You kind of just have to work at it. But working at it, as he indicates, goes with mindfulness and observation. So that was the first step, literally just thinking. Curiosity, asking questions, that goes along with the first step. The first step of finding your voice, curiosity, thinking, asking a question, and just sitting with that question. All part of the writing process. Imagination, inner voice, listening to yourself. Notice that everything to do with writing so far, like we're on like step 4 and not a word is written yet. So much of writing is just thinking. And he really emphasizes that nicely in this book. Emotional connection, accessibility, breaking down barriers, and that is where the writing actually happens. So it is like a breakthrough of a barrier when you can actually figure out what you're going to write down. So yeah, I think the big takeaway here is that like 90% of the writing process actually is not writing, but it is thinking, and a lot of effort goes into that. So that is How to Write a Poem by Kwame Alexander. And remember, when you read this book with your kid, you have to do the little nature walk so that your kid can kind of experience this little poem writing process that he has outlined in this book.